Well, good evening, everybody. We'll call our October County Board meeting to order. Chris, our chair, called me last night and he said he couldn't hardly talk, and he said he and his wife were both sick. And he said, but if I'm on the mend and if I can't make it, I'll call you today. Well, it didn't happen. Receptive evidence and opinion on proper notice, and that would go to our clerk.
The County Board of Supervisors October 20th meeting notice and agenda was posted in the Government Center building in 2 places, posted on the county website on October 9th, 2020, and was published in a legal newspaper the week of October 12th, 2020. It was published on 10/14/2020. In addition, on Friday, October 9th, 2020 at 11:18 p.m., the Office of the County Clerk distributed copies of each notice of this meeting, along with any available proposed resolutions to supervisors via email or mail.
Thanks, Madam Clerk. Did everybody comprehend that? I hope so.
That does constitute legal notice.
Thank you, Madam. And would you proceed with the roll call, Madam Clerk?
Brad Olson, Doug Rowdy.
Here.
Steve Warndall.
Here.
Chris Nelson.
Absent.
Tracy LeBlanc. Dan Ruck.
Here.
Mike Pritchard.
Is Mike on the,
He was.
We're having,
You might not.
yeah, I don't think he's on yet.
Sharon Kelly.
Here.
Tim O'Connell.
Here.
Amy Middleton.
Here.
Jay Luke.
Here.
Fran Duncanson.
Here.
Russ Arkand.
Here.
John Bonaprise.
here?
And Joe Demeling.
Here.
I'm sure we have a quorum. We'll now rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. J, you want to read that?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Number 5, I don't see any conflict there. I haven't heard any. Do you have one, Fran?
Yes, I just would like to make a comment that I was questioned by another supervisor whether or not I would have a conflict of interest regarding the item on library reimbursement. So I would just like to comment that under state statutes, any county library reimbursements go directly to the library and the library board. I am an employee of the Village of Osceola. The Village of Osceola does not, the Village of Osceola does have a public library. I'm not employed by the library. I am not employed by the library board. And given that, and upon legal advice I have received, I will be voting on that issue tonight.
Thank you very much for the clarification. And I'm sure that it's all in order. So number 6, approval of the agenda. And I have one deletion on the agenda. Do you want to make a note of that?
Sure. The resolution that was introduced by Mr. Nelson in general government dealing with the recycling center. I'm trying to look at the number there if anybody sees it.
It's on the second page.
4920.
And we want to strike that from the agenda.
Yeah,
19E.
19E. Yes, that will strike that from the agenda.
Can you move for approval?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we have the agenda. I make a motion that we put public comment back on the agenda until we have settled that issue. And so I would make the motion that we would put it back on.
I don't believe that would be the right time to do it, would it, Counselor?
Well, it's not currently on, other than for, so no public would have noticed that they would have the ability to do that. required.
I'll second it if a second is in order. This is Mike Pritchard.
Just a minute, we're having a comment from our counselor. Go ahead.
Right, the agenda does not indicate that there will be in-person or WebEx public comment, that all public comment needed to be written. So no, at today's meeting, no public would have noticed that they could have. So I would, unfortunately, I think that would be out of order at this point.
So if there's a second, can we have discussion and a vote on it?
So the chairman would rule on whether that is out of order. If the chairman takes my suggestion and rules it out of order, the board that is here could overturn the chairman's ruling by a majority vote.
And I would respect the opinion of our counselor. Did you want to proceed with the agenda as with the one deletion?
Well, nobody accepted that. There was discussion before the approval.
Was there a second to the agenda? Seconded by Supervisor O'Connell. All in favor of the agenda as presented? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Raise your hands, the ones that are opposed. 1, 2, 3, 4.
So the opposing is
But there's no,
to not delete. We don't, that's saying, I don't want 19E deleted?
No.
No, the opposing was to just not accept the agenda as presented with that deletion. That understood by everybody? I think so. So the agenda is passed with that note.
No discussion.
Matters offered for adoption on consent agenda. You want to address that?
Can I see it? Version here. Where do you see
Number 7.
number 7? Consideration, okay, that's the minutes. Grant a zoning district change to amend zoning district map for the town of Balsam Lake. Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Supervisor Connell, second by Supervisor Demling for approval of number 7. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimous. Number 8, public comments, and there wouldn't be any on the agenda, and you have a boatload of public comments, and you want to summarize them, Madam Clerk?
Yes, so we had public comment come into our office via email or mail. We received 60 comments. A lot of them had multiple comments, so I just broke them into how many comments for each topic. There were 51 comments that were in objection to the changes for public comment. There were 17 comments in objection to the chairman's conduct. That would be Chairman Nelson's conduct. 4 comments were in objection to the conduct of Tom Magnifici. 1 comment was about the Library Act 150. There were 2 comments in objection to the passing of the CAFO resolutions. 1 comment was in favor of changing the county recycling as long as there was a clear plan in place. There were 15 comments in objection to getting rid of the recycling center. In addition to that, there were 169 signatures collected by the Amory Women's Club to keep the recycling center. And lastly, there were a couple of comments regarding the issues going on in neighboring counties with their Embrace program. So that was all of them that we received.
Thank you for your summary, Madam Clerk. And anybody can look at the public comments at the clerk's office, correct?
We will be posting them on with the minutes packet and on the website.
Okay, thank you very much. County Board Chair report. Chris didn't give me any notes, and I'll cover something that I did on the Wisconsin County steering committee. I'm on 5 committees. And last Thursday, I was on the Zoom in the office up here. And the biggest thing that I got out of it, and this is going to really affect everybody, is the federal government on the supplemental supplement to the counties. The $1,200 per individual that each one was reimbursed amounted to $8.4 billion directly to our Wisconsin economy. The other supplement that was the $600 plus on unemployment, plus the federal dollars that went to companies to help their payroll, and that amounted to $9.9 million. So if we add that up, that's about 18 billion, or did I say $1 million? $1 billion. If we add that up, that's about 18 point something billion dollars that came into Wisconsin economy. And the point is, our sales tax, they done a survey of all the counties, and the sales tax to the state of Wisconsin, that's going to help tremendously this year. And so that helps the state budget and it helps all our counties. But what that really amounts to is, so there is $18 billion that's not going to be coming from the federal government next year. And they really warned us on our WCA network about 2021, about how our spending and how some of the supplements are going to be. So I just thought that was worth noting, something to really consider when we're considering our budget and the projects we have for 2021. So because we have a 21 and 22 biennium budget coming up. That would be all that does anybody want to do any outside meetings? Do we want to do that right now? We want to get adjourned as soon as we can with the weather out there. So if any supervisors got any meetings or anything they wanted to mention, let's do a round on that now. I myself went to a lake association meeting, a big lake association. No comment on it. Go ahead.
The Trail Advisory Committee has met twice, and it's a great group. They're working really well together. I'll give you a more in-depth next time because we're kind of at the planning, visioning stage, and we've kind of really starting to narrow things down. And next time we'll have things a little bit more narrowed down, and I'll give them more detailed when it's not snowing out.
Does that have anything to do with this?
No.
Our head, or that's
No, we
just-
haven't. No.
That's another supplement.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks very much. Appreciate that. Anything else? Otherwise, we'll move on to number 10, our county administrator. Vince, I'll turn that over to you.
Thank you. First of all, if you haven't checked your email yet, you're probably happy to hear this. The supervisor orientation, which was scheduled for all day Thursday, has been postponed. A number of people cannot make it, and we thought the purpose was to orient, especially some of the newer folks. And I recognize, and I know the chairman recognized how difficult it was for people to commit a whole day. So what we're going to do is reschedule this, and in a way that the orientation part we can do in a series of 2 or 3 meetings, an hour, hour and a half each, or an hour maybe, max, I should say, probably more like 45 minutes, to teach about the county administrator form of government and what each division does, who's in them and how they work, and how to do legislation. Then we will have, we're proposing an evening meeting, possibly October 25th. I believe that's a Thursday night. And if not, then maybe the 24th, where we are going to go over the results of the survey on how the board operates and how we can operate better as a unit. And then we'll also talk about a presentation on a potential game changer and how this board can work together in all their different committees and so on to move this game changer idea forward. So I think it's a very exciting and worthwhile project. So tomorrow or anytime after this meeting, if you don't have, if you think the 25th is a bad time or 24th, let me know. But we'll try and schedule it like at 5:30 and be done by 7:30 or quarter to 8, and we'll have a sandwich for you too. Update on the lime quarry. The bids will be unsealed on October 28th. That's coming up. And we will be discussing those and we'll present to the General Government Committee before we then take it to the board. Regarding CAFO and the operations ordinance, I did receive late Friday the letter response from DATCAP. And we met and we are formulating kind of our understanding of this letter. It's not anything too terribly different than the CUP letter. It's a little more in-depth in terms of legalese. It takes a little more effort of Malia to help us understand it. But as we decipher it and as we reach back out to DATCAP to get some clarification on some points, then we'll be sending it out or we'll be presenting it to you and we'll be discussing it at the HHS committee and then the Environmental Services Committee. So we're going to have that for you to review. Tomorrow is the first of the what we're calling the wing testing. Wisconsin National Guard will be offering a free COVID testing right out there in that parking lot toward the storage shed from 10 to 6. This is for people who have symptoms of COVID or who have had direct contact with people who have COVID. They won't test you if you just say, hey, I think I'll go test it. If you do get tested, then you're instructed to go home and stay quarantined until you get the results of the test back. So maybe if you want to skip work tomorrow, that's what you try to do. But those dates are October 21st, November 4th, November 18th, and December 6th. Testing is free. Finally, got some good news this afternoon. The Government Finance Offers Association awarded this to us. It's just a printout here. They'll send us a nice one, but it's a Distinguished Budget Presentation Award presented to Polk County for the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2020. So this involves the budget that was created last year. So you all remember Maggie Wickery and Andrea Jarek and all the other folks, and I know a lot of people in this room had involvement in it, but it's just good to know that the staff here is continuing to get recognized.
Thank you, our administrator. Any questions with to the administrator on just the topics that he presented?
Repeat those dates for the testing, please.
Sure. October 21st, that's tomorrow. November 4th, November 18th, and December 6th.
Thank you.
Any other questions as far as the cancellation then on Thursday? And the people that are absent will be getting a notice. Madam Clerk?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's already posted and I believe I actually already sent it out.
And one comment on Thursday, I have a steering committee from the Wisconsin County Association. I've been doing that either at the boardroom here or in Chris's office. The topic on Thursday will be budget and administration. So it's open if anybody wants to come in. I'm sure somebody from the budget area here will be with me. So that's Tuesday at 10 o'clock. Okay, number 11, confirmation of appointments, and that would go back to you, Administrator.
Well, that would be the
Anybody
chairman.
by the chair.
I don't
So
recall if he had anybody to appoint this.
I'm not aware of anything. Let's move on to number 12. We'll keep moving as fast as we can. COVID-19 update from Community Service Division. Tanya, would that be you? Okay. Thanks for being here, Tanya.
Real quick update. I always point you guys to the county's website because that's your most real-time information for the status of COVID in our county. Looking at the dashboard, we've got 107 in isolation. That means there's 107 positive people who are needing to be isolated right now. Altogether, since March, we've had 448 positive cases. We did change it up a little bit to show you the current hospitalizations because that was a little confusing. People thought that our cumulative number was the current number. So you'll see on the dashboard, it's current hospitalizations. So far, the county has had 2 deaths related to COVID, and I guess overall, our positivity rate has shot up over the last week and a half here. So pretty alarming numbers with probably 15 to 20 a day. It's turning into a 7-day-a-week operation for us. We're looking at changing up our staffing so we have teams of nurses and contact tracers who can do it. Just because it needs to be within 24 hours of the and basically our fastest are not a paper. Positivity is 0.02%.
Pardon?
4.02%, so that's a cumulative. So I don't have the trajectory over the last 2 weeks. I would imagine it's pretty darn high right now if we're getting 15 to 20 a day over the last couple weeks. Schools are a big impact for us too. So aside from the regular disease management of the 43,000 people here in the county, we're also dealing with 8 school districts needing us, the one health department, to be that deciding factor in and excluding kids and having positives in the schools.
How many did you say were in the hospital right now?
Three.
Okay.
And like Vince said, our website page on that dashboard. So they're all listed. It's basically the next 4 Wednesdays starting tomorrow, I think.
Well, your
Or there's
department's
maybe
done
one-
some awesome work, Tanya, and we certainly appreciate it. Is there anything else on the agenda that you know you have to be present for?
I don't think so.
I didn't see anything, so.
You're gonna kick me out?
So I think you can be excused if you want to, in spite of the weather.
I'll pack up my suitcase.
You might want to stick around for the bud.
Mr. Chair, quick question for Tanya, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
What are we as a county doing on tracing the contacts for people who have tested positive? Are we doing that with staff here at the government center?
Yep, so those teams that I talked about, we're forming. So whenever we receive a positive, we have to do a disease investigation, and that includes finding out who that person had contact with. So that's the contact tracing. It's not, we're not trying to figure out where they picked it up. There's community spread everywhere now. So wherever you go, you need to be careful and watching for picking it up, keeping your distance, sanitizing, washing your hands, wearing the face covering, all of that. So we don't try to find where it came from or where the person picked it up. The contact tracing is really who did that person have contact with, and we need to get in touch with them to make sure that they are staying home for the 14 days. Incubation period.
We are doing that. I'm sorry, we are doing that?
Yes. Yes.
We're getting in touch with people who the positive tested person has been in contact with?
Yep, we're obligated.
And I didn't see anything we were looking at budget matters earlier, and I didn't see anything. Are you doing it with the existing staff, or do you have any extra people to do that, or how are you handling it?
So right now, the federal government is providing CARES funding, and we've hired, how many limited term employees have we? At least 4, and we're looking at hiring more limited term, and those will be funded out of that CARES funding.
Thank you.
What's your answer, Mr. Pritchard?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Tanya. Thanks for all your good work. Committee as a whole, Administrator, do we need to go into this committee as a whole? That's our.
I'll make a motion.
That's our discussion period. We need a motion motion by Supervisor Demling. And I think that's all we need on that. Second by Supervisor. All in favor of committee as a whole? Aye. Our doors are open for this.
Okay, we're going to put the presentation up here. You have a stack of documents in front of you. You have the proposed budget. You have this, which is the presentation I'll be going through. It may help you to look through this, to keep the materials there handy, because some of these slides have the numbers so little that it's difficult to read them up here. But I'm happy to present to you the budget prepared by my staff and I. I want to give a special thanks to Chad Roberts and some of his key staff people, Rhoda and Tammy, and, well, all the division heads have done so much to get this done and prepared on time, and all the way from each division. So I wanted to thank them. All right. And what we'll do here is I'll go through this. You can ask questions. We're in committee of the whole. And then at the end, you can discuss if you have any ideas or suggestions, fine. But the intent then is to study this, analyze it, and then as you come back for the November 10th meeting, you can recommend amendments or changes and so on. You will have at the end a list of items too that are not in my budget, but that were things that might be considered worthy, but for policy reasons, you may say, hey, I think we should include that, and so on. So let's begin here, and I'll try. Some of you have already seen this, or at least most of it. Areas of focus that we're going to talk about here, just a kind of like an agenda here coming up. You'll see all these things that we're going to talk about. What I want to say, though, is here's the bottom line. I tell you up front what I'm going to tell you. And that is, one, our strategy was to design this budget so that it's aligned with board priorities. We had a big change in how we set priorities. We started thinking about longer term and game changers. If we just talk about it and don't dedicate the resources and the funds and the effort, nothing's going to change. We're just going to go year to year like we've always done. So you're going to see in this budget how we're going to pay for things this year, but we're also going to start seeing some ideas and some areas where you may say, that's something to keep in the back of my head, because we might want to use that when we identify something that makes sense to us as a county that will really make a difference. The first thing we said, and I know Chad can attest to this, is keep it flat. We're not going to tell our divisions that we're going to grow the budget, that we got more money to spend. With the uncertainty with COVID, we said we have to be disciplined. We're going to find money elsewhere and pay for these things. I mentioned we're going to design it to allow for future opportunities. The outcome, we have a flat budget except for the capital project that we've been discussing. I put that here because I want you to know straight up, this is not an obligation to do the capital project here in this building, the $5.9 million. But rather, I wanted to put that in this budget so you can see what its impact is and consider it. If you choose not to have that in there, you're setting policy, and then we can't come back and do it next year unless you have 2/3 vote of the board. But we just put it in here, and there's no commitment. You can see how it is. You still have to vote on the funding, the bonding or the borrowing. So that's why there's no obligation here. It is flat except for that. Levy spending, the other good news is when we got done with everything we needed to pay for, we are $413,000 below the maximum allowed levy. That's a good thing for our citizens. The lower levy means lower mill rate. You can see the differences there. Instead of 4.525 per $1,000, it's 4.2, which is probably the biggest reduction in mill rate we've had since 2016 at least. It allows flexibility to engage in our priorities, and FTEs, which is something that really does reflect which direction our budget is going, is flat. But what we're doing is we're redirecting those resources into your priority areas. So that's kind of a summary.
You want us to take notes? If I see there's a question, you want us to take notes and have questions at the end, or what would you prefer?
You know, if you want to ask questions throughout, you
Go ahead,
can.
Fran.
Okay, I have a question. You know, kind of the politician in me just absolutely loves that we're going to be $413,000 below our levy limit. But with counties, is that use it or lose it? Is that 413,000 that's going to be gone forever?
Excellent question. And actually, no, if we don't use that, we are entitled to use that in the next, sometime over the next 5 years.
You get 5 years?
Is it 5 years, Chad?
We have up to 5 years from unused levy. And what would happen in a subsequent year if you all had not used unused levy, as with last year, you used $61,000 of unused levy from 2014. It has to be included in the budget resolution, and you have to pass that by, I believe it's a 2/3 vote for a levy adjustment. So it sits there for 5 years for future years.
Thanks for that question, Fran.
Okay. So you remember the priorities. Now, I hope you do, because the staff sure does. Our committees and our staff is working on how do we reduce substance abuse, increase public safety, expand broadband, invest in parks and recreation. And we've got others too. So it's not that the others aren't important. But in this budget, we're dedicating more time and money to those areas. Look at the overall equalized value of the county. You see it's going up. That means that our county is growing. We're becoming more prosperous, maybe attracting more businesses, more properties, more homes. And that means, you know, we're worth over $5 billion in equalized value. That is what our tax base is based off of. That is what that's the reason we can keep our levy and mill rate down. We get growth. That's always a good thing. Well, in most cases, I should say. The tax levy calculation, I think you see this every year, and there's a lot of information on there. But as I look at it, at the top, you see the equalized value again, 5.3 billion. The increase is 7.8%. Pretty good increase for a year. In 2020, the allowable levy was 22,238,000. This year, the new allowable levy is 22,772,000. We're proposing with this budget 22.3. or 22,359,000. Net new construction is something that we're all used to hearing about. Are we getting new construction in the county? We always want more to help. You know, it raises our levy. It's up 1.82. That's slightly below 1.082, slightly below what it was in 2020. As you can see there, this is what it does to our tax rate. If we did the maximum allowable, the mill rate would be 4.27. But by reducing it or not using all of it, it comes down to 4.2 approximately. So that's a direct impact to the taxpayer. Here it is, looking at the mill rate from 16 to 21. This is where I said it. I mean, the good news is every year it comes down. That's good. Our county is healthy. I do think it's exciting that the mill rate is dropping more in 2021 versus 20 than it had in any of the previous years, which is a good sign. And I think the potential is still tremendous for this county. Sales tax is one of those items where we always count on revenues. And we always estimate what it's going to be, and a lot of money comes in. As you can see here, the history from 2017, about 3.2 million. Looks like it peaked at almost 3.8 million. We budgeted 3.375 this year. Keep in mind, in February and March, we took a big hit. Everybody did in terms of sales tax with COVID. Polk County was one of the first counties in Wisconsin to turn that around. And we are doing well. We'll surpass that 3.375 million. And then, but what we don't know is next year. So I ask that we keep a conservative estimate on sales tax. If COVID sticks around, if unemployment shoots back up, it could have an effect on our sales tax. So we are intentionally being conservative with this number. And we can, I think that, you know, it's something I think we can achieve and maybe even do a little better. Okay, you may want to look at your slides in front of you. It might be easier to read. Pull up my notes here.
Page 2.
Page do you have on?
I have 8.
8? Okay, mine's a little different because I've gone through different versions here. But this is the Polk County government budget and levy by fund. So at the very top, you'll see the 2021 levy, the of 11.8 million or 11.9 million. There's non-levy revenue in this column that comes in, which puts our total revenue at about 22 million. And our expenditures will be that. So we are balanced in that regard when it comes to our general fund. As you go down this list, this 177,000 is our contingency fund. The contingency fund is like the rainy day fund. It's something that the administrator or the board may say, you know, we've got a special project. Last year, when we created PTAG, we said, let's give it some seed money. And we said $50,000. The board approved that. We funded that, or we were going to fund it through the contingency fund. Some manager and leadership development I was going to do last year for the staff until COVID hit was going to come out of that contingency fund. That's what we have when those unique opportunities come up or those emergencies come up. We can act quickly and say we know where we have some funds to help them. Debt service is in here, right up here in this line, debt service fund. Last year, it was $2.8 million is how much we paid. And this year it will be, or 2021, it will be 2.4 million. So that is coming down. The other thing you'll notice here, if you look through those numbers and say, okay, why does ADRC have a negative of 45,000? As they project their budget, they may run a deficit, but they also have, these are, they have a fund that's not in the general fund. They keep kind of like their savings account. They pull it from their own account and they'll pay for that. Trails, they're going to run a surplus. They're actually going to get more money in terms of grants and other things that will help them pay for some things. All right. So that is that page. Okay, right here.
Mr. Chair, can I ask you a question?
Yes, you may.
Mr. Chair, so with that 2.4 million payoff next year in our 21 budget, what will be our total balance debt after that?
I don't know what the total balance is, but it's 2.4 million, and then it would go down the next year to 1.3 million if we don't take out any more funding.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. This page, I will point out here, this number here looks big and scary. The $596,000 deficit, that is from the highway department. And as Mo has explained to me, and he knows it much better than I do, basically we contribute money into this fund or into the general fund every year for highway projects. And then when they come up, we draw those out. Well, we've got a big project with County Road M, the federal project. We'll take money out of that. That's what that 569,000 is. So it really doesn't affect our budget per se that we're putting together here. All right. So this page, I think I'll just point out here, the bottom line down here, we have a total expenditure or budget of $62.5 million. That's high. But It's high compared to last year only because of the 5.9 million that we put in here. We spent about 57 million. We had a budget of 57 million last year approximately. If you take out the $5.9 million, we're actually slightly under our budget from last year. So again, I'll just say thanks to all my crew and staff because when we told them to hold the line, they did. But I think when you get into this, you'll see where we're spending money and you'll go, that makes sense. We're shifting it from places where they can be more useful. This is allocation by department. Should be on the right page here. And you might want to take a look at those, I think.
And I do want to point out to the committee, so you've got a copy of this PowerPoint, but you also have this, and this is your detailed sheets. So the allocation by department on this one, and this is the one I would use because it's a little more readable, would be page 4. The one with the lake picture on the front.
Thank you, Chad.
Okay. So if you look at this page, you can look at all those numbers. Maybe you can read them. I can't. They're too small. But I'm going to go to the next slide here. You can keep looking at yours, and this next slide kind of summarizes some of the key takeaways. In the administration portion department, you can see a decrease in the general fund that's due to the increase in sales tax and controlling expenses, which we've done, I think, a very good job this year. We've also, though, we're increasing the contingency fund to have more money there in reserve to do things that are important. Our debt payment has dropped. It was 2.8 last year, or this year. Next year it'll be 2.4. And we reallocated a 0.5 FTE from community services to add to the front desk receptionist. We think that's been a great success to our citizens who come in. That person, by the way, is also going to be able to help in the clerk's office and taking calls and doing some other things. So that's something that's going to help offset some of the responsibilities there. Buildings, we've got an increase in maintenance costs and improved capital expenditures. Circuit court, we've got court-appointed attorneys, which are getting more expensive, and additional commissioner time. Corporation counsel, again, Malia's done a great job of decreasing personnel costs and getting an increase in state aids, decreasing a 0.5 FTE, which is reallocated to the clerk's office. So that will enable that office to function, I think, more efficiently and keep our staff that deals with the public, instead of being overwhelmed, they'll be more customer focused there. County clerk, decrease in some professional expenses. I think we have 2 elections next year as opposed compared to 4 this year. And like we said, we're adding that deputy clerk position, or adding to a part-time to make that person full-time. The more forestry, not a big change, but it's interesting. Their budget depends to some extent on timber sales. And timber sales were down, and when timber sales go down, they have to draw more money out of the general fund. So they were down. Information technology, which is a very important priority for us as a staff, or me as the administrator. Cybersecurity, aging equipment was putting us at serious risk. And we've done a great job. I think Scott Good and Dave Vollenberg up there have done a good job of kind of righting the ship a little bit, but now we need to make some investments. So we are making some capital improvement investments. And we do have a new director up there who's doing a great job that has laid out a plan, which I think over the next few years is going to enable this county to work more efficiently and be much more effective and current and safe. Cybersecurity is scary. Pardon?
Who's the new director?
Scott Good. We hired Scott. He lives, I think, in the Turtle Lake area, but we hired him from a bank out of the cities. He's closer to home and has really taken over that position. He knows his stuff. Yeah. Land and water, a key area. Addition of half an FTE for the Balsam Lake watershed study that we'll be doing. In addition to that, in land information, we're adding an FTE for a zoning/compliance technician, which will help with the permitting process, help with zoning issues, and then also the compliance technician to make sure people are compliant. When people build things without getting a permit, okay, they're not inspected, they're not tested. We don't get the permit fee, we don't get the property tax increase, and so on. So we have more compliance. Our staff doesn't have the time to go out and chase a lot of these things down, so we think this is a worthwhile position. Also, it's getting the $50,000 to funding PTAG coming there. And then law enforcement, they have a reduction in capital expenditures for 2021, which is, they had some things last year. They have an increase in personnel costs for a new FTE, a recreational deputy. Our commitment to parks, trails, lakes, and our commitment to law enforcement and crime, reducing crime and so on, we need a person to be a recreational officer. So we are funding that position. And actually that position is being allocated from the Lime Quarry, which has downsized from last year. We also are converting a corrections officer to a corrections lieutenant, which will help in jails management over there. And we feel very good about the impact that will have. Museum. Some of us heard a presentation from the museum. We are going to, recommending we repair the wall. I think they're tearing that wall down and grading it up toward the building. If you've seen it, it's leaning toward the pedestrians walking on the sidewalk. We've had some stones fall out. The museum has asked that we do that. And then also, I put in the budget $10,000 for the Historical Society. This is what I would call kind of like seed money. They're requesting for us to pay for half of a director. My proposal is that since they just came to us at the last minute, they've never done this before, and we do give them a lot of money to pay for their buildings and so on, that we give them some seed money because they want this director that they're going to hire anyway to be good at marketing and to recruit people, to raise funds, generate programs to get people enthused, which is all great. So we're going to help seed that with $10,000 and see what they do. So that when they come back, we can see, okay, are you doing the things you promised? And does it make sense for the county, to invest more in you and on a recurring basis? And so that's what we're recommending. Outside agencies, $20,000 for workforce development. If you recall, those of you here last year, this was a campaign which would help bring workforce to the county. But when COVID hit, all of the work that needed to be done didn't happen. So they didn't take the money, but asked if we can move that in to 2021. Tourism asked for an additional $5,000 on their normal budget for a one-time website. And they do need a website. And they came late, or they presented to us late, but they do have some funds in their account, but not a lot. And we thought we could put this $5,000. We'll see how well it works. And also we want to make sure that they're communicating with the EDC, the museum, and other local tourist places. So this is something I think will help them. They do need a website, but yet we're going to expect some serious impact with this, and we'll hold them accountable as much as we can in that regard. Yes.
Can I ask one question on that? How would their website, they're going to have a separate website instead of like, I type in Polk County, Wisconsin, and we've got a website that says Polk County, Wisconsin. Is it just going to be a tourism button on that website?
It will be a tourism website, yes, because about a year ago, I remember I was looking at it and I said, let me see Polk County Tourism. I couldn't get anything. I only got the county website.
Yeah.
And that needs work too. But what the EDC is doing, and they've created a new website. It's much more user-friendly, much more, it's more branding, it's more positive, it shows a good light of the county. That's what tourism wants to do. What we want them to do, though, is to be linked to one another so that, you know, all these things are linked together. If I can get Terry Hauer of EDC and William Johnson communicating and coordinating their promotions and so on, it will help in our reach to people.
I would also add, I didn't say this, but one of the things we talked about at the PTAG is the importance of an online partnership
Presence.
with them.
Yeah.
And that we would be feeding trail stuff. Right now, currently, they're the statewide trail snow reporter. So if you're a snowmobiler, you call Polk County Tourism Center. So
Okay.
they do a lot of like important, I think they just need the software, whatever the not software, but a website.
Web developer
Yeah.
to do it, but then we would have a link on Polk County,
Yep.
Wisconsin.
Yep.
Type in Polk County, Wisconsin, there should be a link on there that takes them right to that too.
Right, and we're talking about that at the PTAG, like how do they people can find trails, they can find
Sure.
a lake, that whole thing.
They can
And the
find
key to that
museums.
is
Yeah, they
really
can find
working
all-
with the economic development and the museum triangle.
yeah, it
Joe,
should
did you
all
have
be-
something to add?
Yes, the website that is currently there through Polk County, they get calls from all over for different departments up here. Then they gotta they got the book right there saying you gotta call this number, you gotta call that number. Where this way here, they would have their own website that people call the tourism center just for tourism,
Thank you.
not
Go
for
ahead.
county and Denison.
Go ahead, Vince.
Okay. Parks, significant increase here. We are creating a parks department. And I know Bob and Mo have worked very closely together. We have a capital improvement plan. What we invested, I think, in the last 5 years, maybe $35,000. And I think in the next 5 years, it's going to be more like $1 million or $800,000, I think. The reason is because we've got some great potential resources here. They need upkeep, they need maintenance, they need repairs, and it's a 5-year deal. So we are starting that. We have a parks department working in the public safety, public works area. They have the equipment, they have the manpower. They will be doing the work that needs to be done in these parks. They'll also be working on trails and those types of things.
Is the Kennedy Dam improvement included in
It's
that?
included in there, and in fact, that's in your package of each of the parks. I didn't list every one.
Thank you.
Park maintenance, and allocated against the downside last year. Solid waste.
No, Vince, Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
on the Parks Department, I didn't catch what you said there. Did you say they would be including trails within their domain?
Yes, they will. The parks, working in parks or recreation area, they will be, even though they'll be housed out of, think of it this way, they'll be housed out of public safety, public works, but we also have a lot of our planners and our guys who can assess needs and working with PTAG. They'll be identifying opportunities. They'll be working when we identify this is what we need to do in this park or this trail. We can then have the Parks Department administer that.
I'd just like to make the comment, I don't know if there's any discussion when naming the department, but naming it the Parks and Trails Department.
I think that might be.
It's under Public Works.
And That, I know other places that have done that when there have been, the trails came up in their popularity several years ago.
All right.
That is catchy. Solid waste and recycling.
We do have some increased personnel costs, increased workers' comp and insurance costs that are going to be allocated under that department, which hasn't been in the past, so we just kind of switched that over. It shows up. Fund balance used, but no general funds. So these are funds that maybe these departments have their own savings account, so to speak. So when they run over, money goes in there. When they are under, they pull it out. You can see that on here. We mentioned ADRC, I think, on one of the early slides. The asset fund is when we buy equipment or something for another department. They pay us back over time. And so right now we'll have a negative on that. The highway one we mentioned, County Road M, $596,000. Again, that's money that we had set aside. Mo will pull that out to use that on that federal project. Lime, of course, we've had some presentations on that. This year, we will pay, in 2021, I would say, we will pay $580,000 for custom crushing. If we get, we're going to have, as I mentioned earlier, the unsealing the bids for people or for companies or organizations who want to buy it. Obviously, we would need to do that custom crushing. So that's, but right now we include it as if we're going to continue on. Fleet is minor. We're just not using fleet cars as much, probably because of COVID and people working from home and doing other things. Trails, we got a little extra, as I mentioned earlier. And then GAM, hats off to our GAM folks. They are doing a good job despite all the challenges they have in this competitive marketplace and with COVID. They are expected, or they are targeting, and we think they can actually make a profit. Yes.
So back on trails, so the 33,000, is that because we've had grants? Why do we have extra, and why is that not being used on the trails? It should be zero, really.
Right, it's just a surplus in grant revenue.
Just
trail
we got
tax
grant.
revenue.
Grant. Okay.
Vince, is the highway, isn't that the only non-lapsing fund that the county has? Carry over from,
Yeah, is that the only one? It's not the only one.
No, we have, so all of those funds up there are special revenue funds. These are existing recurring funds that carry over year to year. These are called our special revenues. If you look on your levy by fund detail I gave you, there's actually a section for special revenue funds. It delineates those funds and how much is going in and out of those funds this year.
thank you.
Okay. General fund balance. I know you guys all know that number. And I can remember a few years ago when I started paying attention, when I moved over here and listened, I can remember our general fund balance being relatively small, but yet being a goal to turn that around. And this is a success story. And so hats off to the former staffs and administration. Some of them are still here because we have built that year after year. The unassigned fund balance in 2018 was 11.8, 2019, 13.9 for a $2.1 million change. That's a security net. Okay, that's there. When things go south, we've got that money to help us continue to deliver the services. The overall general fund went from 19.5 to 21.3. You may have heard this number. In 2019, our unassigned percentage is 51.3%. And, that's good. That's above what the state would say, hey, you need to be. I think it's around 35%. It may not be exact. But most counties in the state are closer to that, I think, than 35%. I only bring this up because if we can continue to be disciplined and direct our resources and energies to our priorities, when we do the right things and we get more money added, I think, next year's, so on, we might have some money there that we could dedicate to a special project, a special need. And that may be one way to fund, or at least partially fund, some of those big game changers that we have in our minds right now. So to me, that's, I hate to say that's money to grab, but I think if we keep growing that, then at some point we can dip into that and use it for those important things. Okay, I guess this might be the fun and game stuff for you guys, huh? I don't know, but when I get, at the very last day, I had like 43 additional funding requests come into me. And you try to say, what's in line with our strategy, what's in line with your priorities, what can we afford, what's reasonable, who put out the best argument for this. These are the things for policy. So I did not put them in my budget. But they may be things that you look at and go, you know what? This is something that is really important, and here's why. And if you wanted to make an amendment to say, let's do that, you can. You may not. It's not in there now. We have reasons for not putting it in there. It's like we have reasons to put something in. They may be good or bad. I don't know. But you can go down that list. One thing I want to point out, some of these are recurring. Some of these are not. Now, forestry, I'll take that for an example of $3,000. It's a small amount. Why couldn't we do that? That $3,000, if you remember our forester at one point in the meeting said, you know what? If we could just have a little money to repair the forestry roads that they cut to get back and do that, maybe they could be used for trails. Maybe it would save on equipment costs instead of breaking an axle on a truck or something, those types of things, and the public could get back to them. I'm a little nervous when somebody says, I got a $3,000 request every year. So we put it in the budget for 1 year. We're going to see what the forester does with it, see how it's used. But he's asking for every year. Put it in there. So that's something where you may say, all right, let's make it recurring. And, my opinion was, let's try it 1 year. Let's see what they do with it. Is it enough? Is it too much? I don't want them just building up an account. That was my rationale for it. But if you go down here, you can see all the different options. I will say this, facilities, all these things might be important. And so I would ask you to consider that. And that's something that you can look at and say, let's do this, this, and this, but not that. So that's up to you.
Can I ask a question? The library request that was floating around, where's that?
Thank you for bringing that up. That is in my contingency fund.
That's in a different place.
Yeah, our contingency fund, I have, I think, $222,000. However, if this resolution passes tonight to where we're going to increase the reimbursement to 95%, that will cost us about $50,000.
46, yeah,
46? Okay. That's cool. That would come out of my contingency fund. So then my contingency fund. So we've accounted for it. If it passes, we got it covered. If it doesn't pass, then we got more money in the contingency fund.
So it's currently in there if we pass what you're proposing tonight.
Yeah, it's accounted for, I'll say that. I didn't put it in the budget because we haven't passed it yet. But if we do pass it, we'll just move it from the contingency fund, and that's what will pay for that increase. Okay. You guys have a lot of homework. Not
As
really.
usual.
Not really. Capital improvement plan. I want you to see this capital improvement plan because the staff puts a whole lot of work in these things, and it gives you an idea of how we plan ahead for some of these expenses. Building costs, automobiles, computers, really big projects. And if we don't plan for them, what happens? Same thing, with this building. If we don't plan for updates and upgrades, and all of a sudden things go haywire, and you got to spend a lot of money in 1 year, and it catches us off guard. You have the capital improvement plan in front of you. Rather than me put up those small numbers, I am going to go to kind of a summary of the things that I think you would be most interested in. But feel free to ask me questions on any of them. The highlights, I called them. As I mentioned earlier, 5.9 million for the government center mechanical update. No obligation, but that's included in this report. 30,000 for the administrator's office at the fairgrounds. That's an interesting one. Now, originally that's to do trusses and a roof repair for that administration office. 15,000 was dedicated for this year, 15 for next year. We moved it back, said, nope, we're not going to do it because we don't have an MOU. We don't know exactly what's going to happen with the fair. But to be safe, I put it in the budget to say, okay, if we proceed, it is a safety component to that. We would put those trusses up for about 30,000. We mentioned the museum wall, the highway spend for aging equipment and upcoming road projects. I know Mr. Warndall knows all about that. It happens. We update, we upgrade. We also have those projects that are expensive, and Mo does a good job of planning some big numbers in advance. 109, what did I say? 109,000 in parks. That's just for this year.
109 for this year, 635 over the next 5.
635 over the 5 years. Yeah. For the improvements and repairs at multiple parks. I'm really excited about this because this is a priority. We've got the manpower, we got the equipment, we've got the funding now. And I think we can do some things to really spruce up our parks and make them more attractive and user-friendly. Lime quarry, we have 0 for 2021. We're going to be unsealing the bids on October 28th. But we wanted to show that because over the next 4 years after that, there'll be about 800, that's where I got that number, 855,000 allocated to equipment, building, and those things. So something to keep in mind. As far as IT, we're going to be spending $1 million over 5 years. As I mentioned, reliability and security is key. When things break down here, if we lose our data here, if we don't have redundancy, if we don't have something to back it up, we're in trouble. And we've been vulnerable for a while. We're also vulnerable to security. So we've been working on that. Again, Scott Good's done a great job. We've got more to do. Law enforcement, we've got some big projects there. Computers in their cars. They've outlived their life expectancy, and so we need to replace those. About $100,000 we'll spend there. We have that new recreational officer, so he or she will be equipped. And one of the things we're going to add is a patrol boat so that they can get on the water. So that's included. And then $250,000 for new patrol cars. Big projects, but that's the kind of things we do. And when we are disciplined and we implement and our staff sticks to their budget, we can do these important things. Finally, in my mind, the most important thing, and from my standpoint here in the organization, are our people. We are allocating for a 2.5% raise for the cost of living. This is slightly different than the last 3 years. It's been 2.7%. It was set by Dana Fry when he was here, and it has never changed. But it's actually supposed to reflect cost of living, market competitiveness for both government and private sector. I think we're doing a pretty good job of making ourselves competitive there, especially when we look at other counties. And I think the latest estimate we got on COLA or cost of living was 1.6%. So we thought it was time to slightly move that down to 2.5. We still think that's very competitive with the other counties and useful. CAM, I want to recognize their great work. They haven't had a official raise in years because there is a resolution that was passed that said until they make money, they don't get pay raises. Now, we do pay for our staff. there. We pay them competitively because we have to. If we don't, they leave. And so we do. But they still, when you think about what they've done over this past year especially, and the fact that they came in with a profit, the only reason that it didn't reflect it in our audit was because of the Wisconsin pension plan had an encumbrance that required them to pay back into that. And that's out of their control completely and not always consistent. Yes,
And how come they're not at 2.5 and they're at 2.0?
they are an enterprise fund. And so they basically run it like a business, and they run it, their administrator, Dana Reese, has to keep things within her budget. And so for them, they agreed this is what they, she recommended. They're kind of a different organization. Okay. Benefits. Mr. Roberts did a great job of saying, okay, how can we use this large fund we have very wisely? They were conservative years ago about the healthcare fund, reserve fund to protect us. Kept growing, and said, how can we use this money now more effectively? The auditor said, yeah, you can bring it down. So we're going to bring it down each year. That's where we talked about a reduction of like $750,000 a year. About 20% of that, which is what employees pay into their health insurance plan for us, and we're applying that to their benefits. But they're going to have a reduction in what they would have to contribute to the HSA fund. Also, we're going to lower their cost for dental care, provide better dental care for them. And then finally, to help the county, we're moving the dental plan to being self-insured instead of paying for someone to administer it. That's going to save us about $25,000 a year. So I think it sends a good signal to the employees. We value them. We're going to keep working to make this place the best place to work and serve. Also, one of my goals coming in here was how do we develop our next generation of leaders? When I used to sit in the EDC office, I used to see every time there was an opening, we put out some big national search firm or whatever, and we'd recruit somebody. We'd have people coming from around the country. And I kept thinking, why don't we have people right in this organization who are ready to move up? I think part of it is we want to dedicate a little more effort, training, money to develop our own, change our culture a little bit to our leaders, to how do we coach and grow them? How do we identify talent and how do we move them around? We're almost scared to move people from one division to another or even one department to the department next door. So how do we develop people and get them some cross training to make them potential executive directors or county administrators someday? We don't always have to go outside. I think we've got good talent here. So we're going to do some investment in training of our leaders. We're going to put in about 6 months of time. This is not some small project. It's about 6 months of time. And it's going to reach, I think, about over 100 of our managers, directors, and so on. And then when you develop leaders, what do? They develop the folks underneath them. Then they'll become leaders. So very important to us. Finally, FTEs, everybody wants to know. Very happy to say we kept our FTEs flat. We're actually down 0.85. But because people like Tanya in Community Services Division, Malia, and others, they have found efficiencies. Their jobs have changed. They've given up FTEs. We've been able to allocate those to places like environmental services, law enforcement, the clerk's office. And so hats off to everybody. That's a true sign of teamwork, is when you get all those division heads in the room and you say, okay, you got to be flat, but who's going to give something up? And when they give something up, that means they get it. They understand what the mission is of the county, and that's what we have here. And I think we have started, and it's just a start. We're nowhere near where we need to be in terms of that, but we're getting there. Here's the graphic. The brown is total employees, FTEs. That includes GAM. GAM has a lot of employees, right? They were at 100 and almost 110. But because of their census, fewer people in that facility, they don't need as many people, they've reduced it. What I am really looking at there is the gold, which is the county. So we went from 329.79 to 328.94. So I think that the FTEs sometimes is the most expensive thing we do. In this case, we've kept it flat. And that is a recap of the budget that I've submitted to you. Any questions or discussions? And I'd ask that you all give it some thought, because now it's your time to say, do I want to change anything? Does it make sense? We want to make an amendment on November 10th, now, whenever.
I would like to point out, so this, and we sent it electronically too, this packet you got today is a condensed packet, but something I added to it is this columns report that many of you that have been on the board for a while are used to seeing, that kind of summarizes each department in just one column. Because what I sent you this weekend is the very detailed department budgets. But this column report lets you look at FTE, their revenues, all that in one straight column on the sheet. So we tried to condense that packet and make it a little easier for you guys than the massive budget I sent you this weekend.
Well, Mr. Administrator, you done a super detailed job.
Sorry, yeah.
We thank you for,
Thank you.
you did a lot of work outside your regular work there, I'm sure.
Oh,
And
I
Chad,
deflect that all to the staff. They did it.
Right, make a motion to go.
We'll take a, let's see, it's, we'll take a break until 7:30. And should we make, having a motion to adjourn the committee of the whole?
I just made it.
Okay. And Supervisor O'Connell, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Adjourn for 10, 12 minutes. Session, and I've got a target date of 8 o'clock with the weather and everything, so I hope this moves along fairly easy. Reconvene into legislative session as a county board. Motion to act on matters considered and recommended by the committee of a whole, and there's none noticed, so I think we're all right there. Moving on to 17, Environmental Services Committee. Bob, did you have a comment on that?
I can. This is an annual request, Chairman of Enterprise, for reforestation in Sterling. It's part of the forestry 15-year work plan. And again, this is an $8,300 request to be paid back from a 0% loan, which will be serviced, that'll be serviced by 20% of the annual timber sale. It's an annual request that the forester provides.
Thank you very much for that update and review. Appreciate it. Motion to approve by Tim O'Connell, seconded by
I know what you're gonna call me.
Kelly. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried unanimous. Executive Committee, Russ, you're the chair of that. You want to address that? I think
Well, I would make a
Chairman
motion.
Nelson had some things he was gonna, so
I
maybe you
make a
want to
motion
pull.
to bring it to the floor.
Yeah.
Which one? 3420. Motion to bring it to the floor.
And second by Supervisor Connell. Madam Clerk, you got that?
Yep.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Well,
Did you have a comment?
yeah, I don't think we're supposed to vote on it yet, but I would
Go ahead.
like to make a motion to amend the resolution and take out 18 through 27 and take out 37 through 48 and send that part of it back to committee and only address the procedure
appointment
for
part?
filling vacancies.
Yeah.
Motion to amend it.
And seconded by Supervisor O'Connell. Did you have a comment? Oh, open for discussion.
It's discussion now, because
Correct.
that's what my question was gonna be, is how can we vote on two diverse items in one resolution?
Any more discussion? Amy?
The other question I had was, in executive committee on that agenda, it doesn't say for action on the public comment piece. It had discussion and action on the appointments, but it didn't on the public comment piece. So it really, we can't really even be moving it along this far.
I imagine that would be on the wording of our agenda on the next meeting, correct?
I think that's why we're separating it.
Yeah. So all in favor of the, Madam Clerk, do you have that, all in favor?
Mr. Chair, Mike Pritchard, I'm unclear what we're voting on here.
We're separating, Mike, we're separating this, there's two parts to that. The first part is the appointments of the county chair in case of a vacancy. And the second part is public comments. So we're going to vote on just separating that. We'll vote on the, a part of the chair appointment tonight and postpone the second part. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion. Opposed?
Because it's a change of rules, is that not correct?
That's correct. I'm sorry, I couldn't
As
do
it's
that.
anonymous, we need to do roll call.
But not for the amendment, just for once you
Yeah,
get to the.
just on the amendment.
Yeah.
So the amendment's carried. And now the second part of that is what, Madam Clerk?
The second part of what? That you should now need to make the roll call to approve the full resolution as it was amended.
And that needs
It should need roll call.
a simple majority,
Two-thirds.
two-thirds. Okay, proceed with the roll call.
Okay.
You want to state what the roll call?
But, Mr. Chair, again, are we voting now on the motion to adopt the resolution about appointment to fill vacancies?
He's going to explain that right now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I thought we were voting. Okay.
Okay, we have the motion to approve the 3420 resolution to amend the Polk County Board Rules of Order to modify the procedure for filling a vacancy on the county board. We're removing and modifying public comment procedures. We have stricken the lines 18 through 27 and lines 40 through 47. So we'll start with Demmeling,
No.
Olson is not here. Rowdy,
Are we having any discussion on this or not?
We had a discussion.
On the merits of the motion itself, I think it was procedural to separate out the two provisions. I have questions about the motion, the proposal as it's written, and I would like to raise them if I can.
Proceed with your question.
Well, first off, I did not read the ordinance 1320. And what does that currently provide? And then secondly, I have read the Wisconsin statutes that are referenced in the whereas clauses, but I think it would be nice to have counsel read those for us as they apply.
What is the answer?
The statutes that are in the resolution.
Okay, you want me to read the language in the statute?
Yeah.
Mike, what is your question according to the statute?
Well, I can just say the statute, in the whereas clause, there's 10(1)D, and as I understand it, it's chapter 59, section 10(1)D. As I understand it, that provides that the chairman may fill a vacancy with the approval of the board, but the board also has the authority to call a special election if they should choose to do so, and spells out some of that procedure. That is, if I understand correctly, that is what currently governs us at this point if we do nothing. Then
You want to hold for an answer now? Hold your comment.
I can finish my comment on the other one. It'd take me just it's a couple of seconds here, but that chapter 59(10)(3)(e) says a board may determine the procedure for filling a vacancy. If this 59(10)(3)(e) doesn't apply. So just so people are aware of that. And then I have a comment following whatever Malia may say here.
So 5910 sub 1D specifically refers to what self-organized counties can do. They have the ability to decide for themselves how a vacancy is filled. Polk County became a self-organized county many years ago. So Polk County does have the authority to set rules as to how vacancies are filled. We do not currently have any rule on how vacancies are filled internally. That's why it defaults then to the other subsection that talks about the way vacancies have been filled thus far. So this resolution as amended, and I did email to the clerk the language of the resolution as amended so we have a clean copy, would do that. It would add just these clauses onto what we're currently doing. So it would, the requirement of the executive committee to kind of vet the potential appointees. But yes, because we are self-organized, we do have the authority. I mean, you could completely take away the authority of the chair to have the say because you're self-organized. So that's what that
is. The language vet in this ordinance 1320? Do you have ordinance 1320 in front of you?
The ordinance 1320 is the rules of order. So what I'm saying is this resolution would amend your rules of order to add that executive committee step.
That's not my question. My question is what does ordinance 1320 say with respect to vacancy?
It is silent for vacancies. unless you adopt this resolution.
What does Article 7 say? It must say something about vacancies.
Currently, in your rules of order, there is no language as to vacancies. We are modifying the language of the authority of the chairman and the requirements when there's a vacancy. So you're adding language in the rules of order about a vacancy where previous to this, and this is only if you pass it, of course, our rules of order were silent, which is why the authority then reverted back to the chair as if we were a non-self-organized county and only could follow the state statute mandate on how to fill vacancies.
And this was passed unanimous at our executive committee, right, Chair? So we'll end discussion on this and we'll proceed.
Okay. Just let me finish. I'll finish right now. And so I read this as saying the executive committee would, there'd be the consultation, but that this section 5910 3E still applies. That's what this resolution is saying. Is that right?
With the addition of.
With the addition of that language. Okay. That clarifies it for me, and thank you very much.
Our council made that very clear now. Is there any more questions or discussions? Chair.
Just because Chris isn't here, but I mean, Chris does not want to do this himself. He wants more involvement and wants a procedure put in the rules of order. So if it comes up again, we don't run into the same battle. And he's asking that rather than him just make the selection, that the executive committee also weigh in.
That's what he brought up. And the initial search of this is always goes back to the municipality or the district where the incumbent was. And I know from all my years, there's been many of them over the years, and like a town board or a municipality, they would always make a suggestion. Suggestions not binding, but they always make a suggestion. And I know this has always been the policy, and I think that's the best interest that we can have. It takes away the political part of it, because these people that are elected at these municipalities, they know the people that they would like to have represent them, and that's a good source of selection of input. Fran, you got something that's?
I just have a question that I'd like to defer to Joe. Joe, that's not the way you were selected to be on the county board, is it?
I was appointed by the township.
You
And
were
then
appointed by the
I was on the town board at the time Joe replaced Mr. Johnson. And he was a unanimous recommendation from the town board.
But he was not, the chair still made the final appointment.
Exactly.
And then the county board approves the appointment.
So a roll call vote, and a yes will be in favor of.
Have a comment? This is me speaking personally. I do not think the general government should have the sole responsibility with the chair to put people into different positions. To me, I still say, I don't care if it's a candy machine guy, bring it to the full board.
It still does. The full board has to confirm the appointment.
Yeah.
That's in current statute.
The
And
full board will always have to confirm the chair's recommendation.
And it is not the general government. It is the executive.
So, Madam Clerk, will you proceed? And a yes vote will be in favor of Chairman Arquette's motion.
Okay. So do you want me to start over?
Yes.
Okay. So Demmeling. Okay. Rowdy.
Yes.
Morndall.
Yes.
Ruck.
Yes.
Pritchard.
No.
Kelly. O'Connell.
Yes.
Middleton.
No.
Luke.
Yes.
Duncanson. Arcand.
Yes.
And Bonaprise.
Yes.
And with, what do absence count as?
They don't count.
Do we have 8 yeses and 4 nos?
Thirds.
That's 2/3 that passes. And so go to the other part of your Chairman Arcan. Oh, did you have a question, Dr. Rowdy?
This is a question for corporate counsel.
Yes.
The second part of this was modifying public comment.
That was removed.
I know it was removed, but don't we have public comment in November because nothing has taken place on public comment?
And it's the public hearing for the budget.
Yeah. What do you
I
mean?
mean, like
and?
you would have to have the public hearing for the budget in
Okay.
November.
That'll be a special part of the November agenda, correct?
But right, so if the chairman makes a decision to say public comment is only going to be written, the only way to overcome that, once it's on the agenda, is to have the chairman rule and then overrule the chairman by a simple majority. So it's his agenda. Does that make sense? Like, so I'm letting you know that there's a process to, if it happens the way it happened tonight, there's just a process to take to say, no, we're going to do it the other
But
way.
the public comment on the budget part in November.
That's statutory, that has to happen.
That'll be at a specific time, like
Yep.
during our meeting or prior to the meeting.
I'm not sure how we have it agended. It'll be like previous years.
So this year, I think last year we've always had it at 5:30.
But since we should probably stay away from that discussion right now, since it's no longer a part of this agenda.
Correct.
But yeah, we can talk about the process.
I do have a question on that. Okay.
Question's got to be referring to our agenda.
Yes. I have a problem with waiting off on public comment. I mean, you don't have a computer, but everybody else, I bet you they got several hundred emails and stuff, and I know I did.
Probably.
But the thing is they want that back. They want to know, we're supposed to be representing them. How can we represent them when we get all this feedback from them saying, what constitutes where you can't have public?
Chris isn't here and I can't answer.
Well, to me, they're all saying it's against the law.
Malia, you can make a comment on that because we do, as far as I know, we allow public comments at all the committee meetings. But it was stated that it's not mandatory.
It's not statutorily mandatory, but in your current rules of order, it does talk about will generally be allowed, and that the chair can limit it to certain things when it comes to issues of public safety and that kind of thing. So again, it's a lot of authority is given to the chair unless somebody challenges his or her exercise of that authority to limit the type of public comment. Like under today's agenda, it was, written only ahead of time. But again, the current rules of order give the chair some leeway.
It does.
Mr.
We've
Chair?
got a lot of resolutions
But I
here.
would suggest again, moving on.
We have to move on these resolutions.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, again, and I'm seconding Joe, his comments, and I did take time to read through all of the comments that our county clerk put together and made a very nice report on. But the public comments, and a number of these people are people I know, and most of them were people I don't know, but they were just overwhelming. And I think we need to clear the air on this issue, and that our normal point of procedure should be having verbal comments at the meeting, as we have in the past, with some limit on time and admonitions about being out of line. But it was an overwhelming response in a couple of days that people sent in to the clerk's office. And I think we should take that to heart. And I totally support what Joe is saying. And whether it takes a resolution or a sense of the meeting or a sense of the board, that we get a message to our chair that that is.
Mike, we got a point of order here. I could just say I feel the same way, but it's not my call.
We took that off the agenda. We sent it back to committee.
Yeah.
We absolutely should not be discussing it
Absolutely
further
not.
at this
We
meeting.
should, because we got a
It's
different
off the
chair.
agenda. It is off the agenda right now. If you continue, you'll be violating the open meetings law. You sent it back to committee. That's where the topic is. So that's where this debate should continue, is at committee.
I
Because
just
that's
have a
where you
question.
already sent it
As
to.
far as I know, there'll be public comments allowed at all the committees, at least the ones I'm on.
Can I just ask a question? So, Malia, will this mean that we go back to where we were? I think that's the question. So we've said with the splitting out of the motion that we don't support taking public comment away. So therefore, in my mind, we go back to verbal in-person, or, WebEx.
You go back to the current rules of order that allow the chairman some leeway, and that's where the argument needs to happen. But this conversation right now is not appropriate because this topic is no longer on the agenda. But if anybody wants to have that conversation at committee, and I will come with that answer so we can have that robust discussion.
I'm just curious, what committee is it?
I'm on Health and Sewer, Chairman of Health and
Executive.
and public comments is allowed.
Executive, because it's affecting the rules of order.
Okay, we gotta move on to general government, number 19.
All right. You can scroll up here, Mr. Chair. Read through the resolutions. All right. General government, number 19A is 3820. That's the resolution to adopt a master fee schedule for the 2021 budget proposal. These are the fees that the General Government Committee approves from all the departments. They're also listed in the budget under revenues. These are the various fees. This resolution is just part of the budget process to adopt that fee schedule as approved by General Government, and it was recommended for adoption by General Government.
Motion for adoption. Motion by Supervisor. And seconded by you, Russ? Got that, Madam Clerk?
Yep.
A discussion on the motion. Hearing none, move for approval. All say aye.
Aye. Resolution 3920 is the resolution to set the public hearing for the budget and to authorize the administrator to direct staff to publish the proposed budget as has been presented. One change this year, and talking with the administrator and the general government director, and the general government chair, is that instead of having the budget, the public comment during the middle of the budget meeting, which has been done in the past, like at 7 p.m., we're going to do the public hearing prior to the November meeting at 5:30 p.m.
That's the way we've always done it.
Yeah, well,
Move for adoption.
I make a motion that we adopt.
Supervisor Luke. Motion. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all in for approval, say aye.
Aye.
Nay. None. Motion unanimous.
All right, number 19C, resolution adopting revisions to Polk County Personnel Policies, Chapter 8, Section 1.2D, 2.4A. I need two small revisions, or requesting two small revisions prior to open enrollment in November. The first revision changes human or employee relations in the policy to human resources. This is something we've identified it as budgetarily. It also clarifies some language to put us in federal compliance along with in regarding EOC standards. The other issue in it is we presently offer a health plan to employees who work less than 25 hours, or more than 20 hours a week, but less than 30 hours a week. And we're proposing to remove that so that health plan is only eligible to employees who work more than 30 hours a week in accordance with federal statutes. This only affects one active employee at Golden Age Manor, and there's available hours for that employee if they choose to move up to a 30-hour-a-week average. But what this does is this consolidates our health plans a little bit, brings us in federal compliance, and makes administration of the plan a little less wieldy.
Move for adoption. Russ, in a second. Mr. Rock, discussion on the motion. Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Nay. Motion carried unanimous.
4820 is the resolution to set the library service rates for calendar year 2021. This was introduced by Supervisor Duncanson. I'll let her address it in just a second. I want to clarify what this would do. A few years back, the board set it as a priority to eventually get to 100% funding for the libraries. This would move us from 90% funding to 95% funding for the 2021 budget year. I want to clarify something that Vince touched on. I went ahead and created the budget based on the premise that the budget number would include the library fee if you passed. If you pass it, the administrator's discretionary fund will decrease from $223,000 to $178,000. If you don't pass it, the administrator's fund will stay at $223,000. The administrator gave me parameters for what he would like in his fund. The difference in allowable levy will not be impacted either way. It's a way of presenting in the budget so that I could have a firm, solid budget and give you all a firm, solid number of allowable unused levy, whether or not you adopt the library. If you don't adopt it, we can always use more money in the discretionary fund for initiatives. If you do, we'll pull it from that for the budget.
And I believe, Mr. Administrator, it wasn't the request 100%, we settled at 95.
Well, the goal of the original resolution was to get to 100%. The resolution is 95% from 90%.
Russ?
Just to make it clear, it wasn't the Board of Supervisors that wanted 100%, it was the library.
Yeah,
board's goal.
My,
Go to 100%.
my correction, thank you. Move for adoption.
Let me, can I just clarify that last comment?
We'll have a discussion on that. First, you have to bring it to the floor, Mike.
Okay.
Move for adoption.
I make a motion, we approve resolution 4820 to set library service rates for 2021 at 95%.
You have a second. Second by Joe. Now discussion, Mike.
The comment again, the board approved the 5-year comprehensive plan, and which did clearly set out that it was the intention to increase the Act 150 funding to 100%.
I believe that's correct.
I would support the motion, and I think we've got a wonderful library system. And this basically compensates the municipal libraries to some extent for the cost of people not residing within their municipalities using those libraries. The municipalities tax their own citizens in support of their libraries.
That comment is correct, Mike.
Thank you.
Fran?
I don't know if everybody here, especially maybe some of the newer supervisors, know a lot about this method and how this works. By statute, I'll try to make a long story short. There's a cost per circulation of items. And what this does is it reimburses the libraries for providing services to people who do not live in the municipalities that use the library. Now, I don't know, Chad, do you have any comments of what is the expense to Polk County?
So it would rise from $944,000 That's what the current apportionment is. Take it to 990,000. So the numbers you all are presently looking at, it won't change your remaining number for your initiatives for the rest of the year, the 400,000. But what it does in future years is you do have to understand that when you increase that apportionment, our apportionment of levy decreases.
Actually, you didn't let me finish my question.
Correct. Go ahead.
My question was, what is the expense to the county by there being libraries in these municipalities? What does that cost the county that these cities and villages have libraries?
Actually, can I make a comment? on that? Actually, I believe the biggest the cost is to the townships and the municipalities. Like when I was on the town board at Alden, we're next to St. Croix County in Richmond. For everybody that went to Richmond from that municipality, and Jay, you're familiar with that, they are charged back to the township and municipality. Osceola, for instance, the people from Minnesota, if they're from Franconia, so.
As they should be, it's their fair share. This is a reimbursement.
Yeah.
It's not a charge. It's just a reimbursement for what it costs the libraries to provide services to people who don't live in the municipality. Some townships, for example, the town of Lincoln, above and beyond that, make a payment to the libraries because they recognize the value of the libraries and the value of
So
the
this isn't the biggest cost to the county. So do we have Madam Clerk, did we have a adoption and a second?
Yep, we have.
Okay, end the discussion. All in favor of the adoption, say aye. Aye. Nays? Motion carried unanimous. Thank you. Moving on, Chad.
19 has been taken off the agenda.
Yeah.
That moves us to 20.
I'm Chair of the Human Services, and this resolution was support of our Veterans Outreach Act. It's pretty simple. Veterans have a very, very good service to our county, and we'd like to even expand that. Move for adoption.
Move.
And motion and second, Madam Clerk. Any discussion? I think it's pretty self-explanatory. All in favor of the adoption, say aye. Aye. Motion carried unanimous. Public safety and public works. Who's in charge of that? Kim, or is that?
Jay, I could speak to that.
Go ahead.
So the state assesses a fee on all phone bills and all for 911 for fire and police protection. For several years, that money is supposed to be given to enhance 911 services and things like that. For several years, the state has dipped into that for other things. It hasn't gone to enhance 911. This is a resolution, a lobbying resolution to advocate for the state to use that money for what it's appropriate for to build out 911.
Thank you, Chad. Move for adoption.
I'll move.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion? I think you explained that very well. All in favor of the adoption, say aye.
Aye.
Nay. Motion carried unanimous. That concludes our resolutions. And I asked when we started the meeting, I had a comment on the Wisconsin counties. Any other supervisors have comments of any meetings they attended? If not, we'll go out and fight the weather and move to adjourn by Joe. Seconded by Grace Kelly. Everybody. All in favor, say aye. Move to adjourn. And thank you for your cooperation, everybody. I think we covered a lot.
Good job. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Zach, for your participation. Appreciate it. It's I tried to move it along because you're sitting in a pretty nice place.
Good job.